She spake, and smote the mules with the shining whip, and quickly they left behind them the streams of the river. And well they trotted, and well they paced, and she took heed to drive in such wise that the maidens and Odysseus might follow on foot. And cunningly she plied the lash. Then the sun set, and they came to the famous grove, the sacred palace of Athene. So there the goodly Odysseus sat him down. Then straightway he prayed to the daughter of mighty Zeus. Listen to me, child of Zeus, lord of the Aegis, unwearied maiden. Hear me even now, since before thou heardest not when I was smitten on the sea, when the renowned Earthshaker smote me. Grant me come to the Phaeacians as one dear and worthy of pity. So he spake in prayer, and Pallas Athene heard him. But she did not yet appear to him face to face, for she had regard unto her father's brother, who furiously raged against the godlike Odysseus, till he should come to his own country. Whoa, okay, short passage today, but one kind of packed there, isn't it? If there's any confusion about the kind of logistics of how Nausicaa is going back to the palace while Odysseus is walking behind her with the other maidens, that is cleared up today. Odysseus speaking to Athena, praying to her, saying that even though you didn't hear me when I was out on the sea, maybe now you can grant me a little reprieve with these Phaeacians for them to see me as worthy of their help. But that last sentence there, Athena hears him, but she's still kind of skirting Poseidon's wrath, for she had regard unto her father's brother, who furiously raged against the godlike Odysseus till he should come to his own country. Is that foreshadowing? I don't know that we've had foreshadowing in the book so far, at least not directly like this. If this is indeed foreshadowing, is this saying that Odysseus is never going to shake the curse of Poseidon until he steps foot back in Ithaca? We obviously don't have the answer to that today, but if it's not foreshadowing, it's definitely foreboding that there is more woe to come to Odysseus between now and when he gets back home. Looks like we are going to go into book 7 with Odysseus meeting Alcinous and the rest of Nausicaa's family, unless it decides to take a sharp turn and go back to Telemachus, maybe. Okay, my impression of where we are in the book so far is we got an interesting and compelling setup with Telemachus. We don't know what's happened to him regarding his return home with the wooers, though the gods have said that no harm will come to him. We haven't seen that, though. And we've got something building up pretty exciting with Odysseus trying to get back home. We're finally in his shoes, his sandals, maybe. Well, he's not really wearing anything at the moment, in order to get back to Ithaca. So it feels good to kind of be rooted in the character who the friggin' story's about. And all of the things. Okay, all right, I'm going to make a little prediction here. Early on in the show, I had said that I was a little skeptical as to, like, the things of the Odyssey, fighting Polyphemus and the sirens and all that stuff, the big greatest hits, right? I'm wondering, since my memory of them happens with Odysseus's crew, whether or not we're going to have one of these stories within the story, the way that Menelaus was talking about his time stranded and how to get back to the place where he needed to give the offerings to Athena, as he was telling Telemachus that he was bringing Telemachus into his story. I'm wondering if those big moments, those iconic moments, are going to come out in a story within a story from Odysseus, rather than us witnessing them firsthand. That's my prediction. That's what I'm guessing. Will you give me a prize if I'm right? Okay, let's wrap that up. That is book 6. Hurrah, we did it. But I told you I have a little bit more research about these temples of the gods. And I want to talk today, I think, about functionality. I mean, we talked yesterday about the altar and what kind of happens there, but let's talk a bit more about what each of these things are doing. First, let's talk a little bit about sacrifice. We hear the word sacrifice and immediately calls to mind Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, human sacrifice, animal sacrifice. And that's not entirely what's happening. There's a sort of reciprocity behind the sacrifice that in Greek mythology, Greek religion, the exchange of gifts between human and gods was really important. The gods give divine favor. They give gifts in terms of safe travels home or a very fruitful harvest. And so ongoing sacrifices or bigger hecatombs were conducted. I think I'd even made a joke early on about what are the gods doing with all this stuff? Just having stockpiles of things around. What actually is happening at these altars when they are doing sacrifices is when there's libations and not just prayers, but like they would burn the offerings. So you would bring sacks of wheat or different raiment that you would burn on the altar to the god, and that would be how they, I guess, receive it. I mean, I don't know, my brain's going kind of Harry Potter mode with like green fire and it's a teleportation device, but I think really it's just like I'm putting my trust and faith in you that by burning this thing that is maybe essential to my life and culture, you recognize that as a sacrifice. I am sacrificing this bit of food to you that could be in my stomach right now. We talked about the kind of grounds that these temples were, that they were sanctuaries and not just a single building with an altar in front of it. And these would be places, think of it like an art gallery, where there would be offerings in the shape of, pottery art or sculptures and statues and precious metals. And they would be placed around the sanctuary, all in the honor and memory of the god. Sometimes temples would have oracles at them to help with decision making, whether political or personal. And you hear in a lot of Greek mythology, Delphi is one of the names thrown out there a lot. In fact, we're going to talk about that during Supporter Month with a project on Theseus that I've been putting together, where the oracle would be a sort of bridge or connection to the divine being in order to get a prophecy, in order to get a message or a riddle, in order to deliver to mortals, in order to give them guidance. Depending on the type of city, the wealth and the grandeur of the city, you might find some of the sanctuaries housed wealth and inventories, public record. The Acropolis has inscription records for annual revenue dating back to like 440, 439 BCE. So it's almost like a treasury or a bank where the people like break in case of an emergency. They need this wealth in order to do something for the community, for the city, in order to survive. It would be stored near or by the sanctuary, which speaks to the personnel. These sanctuaries didn't just exist and no one maintained them. There were priests, there were other personnel, including treasurers, inspectors, contractors, all doing various duties around the sanctuaries to ensure the upkeep and making sure that all of these functions, particularly the day-to-day stuff, were kept up. In essence, these sanctuaries were like civic administrative buildings. The Greek mythology equivalent of your local bank / church / DMV. But it wasn't all just administrative and religious. I mean, there were also festivals, fun times at the sanctuary, where which could also be religious. I would assume that they were, but clearly we know of the Olympic Games, and so games of sort would be tied or anchored to these temples, specific days of worship and the rituals that would come with those days, whether a somber festival or one that gave levity to the city. And often these games were done in the honor of a specific god whose temple that they were conducting it at. And I think I want to also mention, just kind of wrap up some of these ideas, is that while we're talking about a specific story here, the Odyssey, and it takes place during a specific time frame, whether that story has been changed over the generations of it being told is one thing, but the narrative itself takes place over a set duration. Which is different because then when we talk about Athena, when we talk about Poseidon, we're talking about a very specific entity or deity there. In reality, the deities were not uniform at all. They existed locally with just iterative forms. And I'm wondering if that's why you see so many gods and goddesses pick up different domains over time that sometimes don't quite go with each other. For instance, you might see civic functions attached to Artemis, who is a goddess of the hunt and the forest. So you give time, you give location without the interconnected way of communicating, at least instantaneously, the way that we have nowadays. And you can see these iterations happening easily so that you get really locally rooted versions of gods. Okay, that's all I've got for the Greek temple research for now. As I said, maybe if I'm ambitious enough, I'll turn it into an article. In fact, why don't you let me know if that's something you would like to see? Are you readers? Do you enjoy articles? I love writing. I would be happy to write an article someday on some of this stuff. Not that it would be at all academically sound, but, I could put my own little spin on it and make it interesting to read, compile some of my research into something somewhat readable. Would you like that? Well, you know what? You can tell me if you would over at patreon.com/gruntworkpod. That's right. We are at the end of book 6. Which means, as of today, you can get the story-only audio of Book 6, as well as Books 1 through 5, in a traditional audiobook format by going over to patreon.com/gruntworkpod. If you contribute, you get access to those, although I keep telling everyone, if you want to save your bucks, starting May 1st, we're doing Supporter Month, in which we are giving access to everything we've ever done over the 9 years of our Gruntwork Podcast Network, for free to anyone who subscribes for free over at patreon.com/gruntworkpod. I feel like I said the website a little too many times in this promotion already. But you can go get those story-only audios now if you want to contribute, or you can wait till May 1st and get them for free for the entire month. Then they go back behind the paywall afterward. We just want to give you a chance to sample everything that we have done over the course of our podcasting history. It's been a lot. I was surprised. It was more than I anticipated. But maybe we also include articles into that. So let me know what you think about what you would like to see as bonus content over at Patreon. You can also support this show by leaving a rating and review over at Apple Podcasts, over at Spotify, and you can subscribe and comment on our YouTube channel and send somebody the show. If you think that they like Greek mythology, the Odyssey, they're really excited about Christopher Nolan's movie coming up, just send them an episode, send them the website, send them the YouTube channel, and tell them, hey, you might get a kick out of this. And before we wrap up, I have one more thought that I'd like to share with you all. I had asked the question a couple times, how do we feel about seeing Christopher Nolan's movie before we're done with the book? Maybe some of you are already done with the book and it's not a big deal. But as far as what I'm doing here on this show of giving you my experience without it being ruined by watching a movie or miniseries of the Odyssey, I had an idea. Folks, I had an idea. There's a trade-off that comes with it, though. I can do that. I can still give you my first impression of what I'm reading over the course of the next year, regardless of the fact that Nolan's movie comes out in July. And the way I can do that is if I worked really, really hard right now, I could record the remainder of the year between now and July in order to be able to watch Nolan's movie without fear of it ruining what we're doing here. Now, the trade-off, as I said, is that that would mean basically the middle of July all the way through January would be recorded ahead of time. So I would be very out of step with what's happening with you, with the podcast, in the world. I don't think it would be that noticeable, personally. I mean, it's not like we do a lot of topical stuff on the show, but it does take away a little bit of the back and forth feedback that I get from you all. I can certainly, add things to my commentary should something come up, but we would basically be locked into the style of what we've been doing for the last couple months here, because I need to just kind of hit a workflow and go through it. Enjoy it, not rush through it, but just kind of know what I'm doing in order to do it every single day between now and July and get them done. Anyway, haven't decided to do that yet, so I want to hear from you all if you think any of that even matters. Maybe you're like, hey, I don't think watching the movie is going to affect how you do the show. That might be true. I could be overthinking it. I'm famous for that. I'm also famous for talking too much, and I'm going to end today's episode here and say, join me tomorrow, because we don't take a day off as we go into Book 7 here on Odyssey. Until then, okay, goodbye. Odyssey is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. The show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Odyssey, written by Homer. Theme song by Neuroflow. You can support this show and other shows like it by going to patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.